Time now for us to discourse on some of those salient matters impacting our national life. And today I've titled my blunt thoughts, SNIT, SML, and Ghosts. The interesting case of the circus called Ghana. SNIT, SML, and Ghosts. The interesting case of the circus called Ghana. But things happen in this country. But it appears, I say week biya and 2 weeks biya na scandal ba kunim. It appears every week or two there's something to talk about. Sometimes, I was just reflecting on it yesterday and asking myself, what is going on? It's just back to back issues. When are we going to rise from the ashes, the dust, maybe like the phoenix? But this is Ghana. It's our only beloved country. It's our motherland. You can go wherever you will, but this will remain the land of your birth, the land to which your umbilical cord is tied. And that is why together, we must come together and make Ghana better. But some things give me a lot of food for thought. For example, the SNIT issue, the tussle with organized labor, CSOs, among others, even the media. The SML report by KPMG. And of course, also a bit of talk about the OSP and Ghost name. So let's get right down into it. Come with me to the slides. So let's start with the bit about SNIT selling 60% of its stake in its hotels and why. The why of it, SNIT says it's to develop the hotels into world-class standards for capital injection and to assist in hotel management. Makes sense, right? Let's move on. But then, if you look at the sale of SNIT's hotels and you look at a timeline of the sales, you would see that in November 2018, there was a search for a transactional advisor. Then in January, there was a short list for 6 out of 15 firms. Then in February 2022, so you look, 2018, 2019, 2022, there was a search for a strategic partner, and that began in earnest. And then in March, 9 companies sent proposals, 9 of them. Let's go to the next slide. Now, of these 9, you would realize that there was also the bit about the transactional advisor and the contract awarded. Now, the transaction advisor was Messrs. SEM Capital or SEM Capital. The contract price as of 2019 stood at $492,000. So cap it off at $500,000. It's $8,000 shy of $500,000. But then, next slide. Then you look at the sale of hotels in respect of a focus on 25% of the shares in the Grand Regency Hotel, because the buyer was indeed Rock City Hotel, and there were others that were in the pot. But the cost of shares, right, was $1 million. Okay? Mind you, 25% of shares in the Grand Regency Hotel. The cost of the shares, $1 million, what Rock City paid. And the transaction advisor alone got how much? Almost $500,000. Like I said, it's also a pot of entities, not just Grand Regency Hotel. But some of these things make for interesting review. $500,000 transaction advisor, and at least for one of those, the shares offloaded, $1 million. That's half of it, unless you're adjusting for inflation and all of that. But then we go to our next slide. The SNIT bid has become topical. We're talking about it. Some say, actually, there's really nothing wrong with it. He's a Ghanaian, he's a businessman. But some would also say, how about the optics? And if every party that came to power acted like this, and we all, went grabbing shares and all of that, let's look at it. Minority shareholding or majority shareholding, these things do not make for very pleasant optics. And these are things, let's face it. If you go to other jurisdictions, would you see this? The very jurisdictions we try to emulate. Brian Echampong, I know him, met him a few times, spoken a few times. Nothing against him. I have no. In fact, I want our business people to thrive. But sometimes you look at the optics. Are these the things we would want to see in our democratic practice? Would you find that in the democratic practice of the countries you want to emulate, the Japans, the UKs, the Americas, would they countenance this? Sometimes we just have to look at those issues from those angles. Are we going to lift the veil, find out about beneficiary ownership and all of that? Why do we want to put ourselves through that? Which makes for interesting reading when you come to my second issue. The KPMG report. Yesterday, when I had an interaction with Chairman of the NDC, Johnson Esiedun-Kesia, he made mention of the fact that the president hadn't willfully released the report, but that it was one of the preconditions. You remember recently the minority was at the Jubilee House at the behest of the president to negotiate, basically, on a number of matters that they wanted the minority to come on board on. And he says one of their prerequisites was that the SML report by KPMG would be released. But what are the contents, some of the crucial contents of that report? If you look at Act 663, so a single source arrangement must receive prior approval from the PPA. Clear. I've heard some people speak about this and say, oh, but should this have come to Parliament from the majority side? Should this really have come to Parliament and all of that? I don't know what they would have said if the shoe were on the other foot. But hey, let's give them the benefit of the doubt. We do know that the GRA on 3 separate occasions sought PPA approval to contract the then SMEL. It was a different entity using the single source method. Guess what? The PPA declined all the 3 separate requests on the grounds of SMEL's lack of capacity. Note that, lack of capacity and prior experience. Where's your experience? Where's your capacity in providing the subject matter services? So that's according to the law, the act. But what happened after that? Let's go to the next slide. Then, in February 2017, if you look at the evolution, you would see that SMEL was then incorporated on the 14th of February 2017. By June to September that year, GRA had made 3 unsuccessful attempts, like I made mention of, to obtain the PPA's approval to give a single-sourced or sole-sourced contract. In November, SMEL changed its name to SML. The E was gone, I guess, but nothing had really changed. Then in June, SML appointed a subcontractor to West Blue Ghana Limited, a service provider to the GRA. Then there would be that subsuming. GRA extended the transaction audit service contract with SML. West Blue kicked out of the picture, SML. SML then transitioned to become the main contractor. So initially, look at it, they were subsumed under West Blue, right? SMEL transmogrified into SML, subsumed under West Blue, and then, as the minority, they then became the main fish, the big deal. SML then transitioned to become the main contractor without PPA approval. But it gets even murkier. Next slide. In 2019 and 2020, the GRA dished out additional contracts to SML, an entity that the PPA had wondered about in terms of capacity and experience. Now, in 2023, the Ministry of Finance, the GRA, and SML consolidated. And if I recall, if memory serves, the finance minister then, Kenneth Oriata, put pen to paper himself. The first consolidation contract and downstream petroleum audit contract, and extended the scope of SML services to include upstream petroleum and minerals audits. Do you see the trend? Read between the lines. Read. I'm not saying anything. You read between the lines. Next slide. Then you also take a look at the Public Financial Management Act. And all of this is based on the KPMG report as well. Ministerial and parliamentary approval of contracts that binds the government of Ghana for more than 1 year. The GRA and SML was executed for a period of 5 years each. Yet when you're looking at the Public Financial Management Act, you're looking at 1 year. 5 years each. No evidence of parliamentary approval for the contract as mandated by the PFMA. No approval by Parliament, yet they went full steam ahead. Next slide. But if you also look at the total amounts, gross and net of taxes the GRA paid SML from 2018 to 2023 for the contracts in scope, or in reverse, actually, you look at the gross sum of 1.4 billion in cedis, the amount in dollars, $186.33 million. The net, 1.06 billion, the amount in dollars, $141.17 million. The question, though, as we go to the next slide, the question, though, is where did the taxes go? 1st September 2020 to 30th April 2021, a bulk payment to SML covering invoices for an 8-month period did not have VAT and other deductions amounting to 13.38 million Ghana cedis. 13.38 million Ghana cedis. Now, this contradicts the GRA's standard practice because there are precedents of deducting such taxes for payments to SML between the 1st of June 2020 and the 31st of August 2023. So what happened? 1st June 2020 to 31st August 2023, a period of about 3 years. We followed a pattern. All of a sudden, what happened on the 1st of September to the 30th of April 2021, where there was this gap? What happened in between? Did the GRA forget to tax? They wouldn't forget to tax us. So did they forget to tax SML? I don't know. But let's move on. Get to the final issue. You know why I always say that this country is a funny one, which is why this morning I said the interesting case of the circus called Ghana. So the SNIT bit, the optics don't look so good, honestly. The SML bit, the optics don't look so good. But sometimes you ask yourself, why are we bedeviled with so many problems? It's because of greed, wickedness, on the side of the ordinary man and on the side of the technocrats and the politicians. Because how can we, recently I heard the vice president talking about ghost names and how they would be, but how can we do this to ourselves? The Office of the Special Prosecutor and the Controller and Accountant General's Department have released findings into the Government of Ghana Payroll Administration. Now, the investigation covered employees on the government payroll in the northern region only. Northern region, payroll, Ghana for. Let's go. Now, if you look at the sampled high-risk persons, we were looking at 1,265. Those cleared 1,020. That's like a chunk of them. It's left with what? 255. The ghost names found. But guess what? Let's go to the next slide. Of those, if you look at the amount saved monthly, 2.85 million Ghana cedis. That can start some road projects. It can start some hospital projects. It can take care of some schools under trees. It can do a whole lot. Yearly, do you know what that amounted to? 34.24 million Ghana cedis. And guess what? As of today, as I stand here and speak to you, some ghost is about to get paid at the end of this month. After haven't we seen it before, where even at the finance ministry, there were ghost names, people earning 20,000, 8,000, 13,000 a month. And if these things go undetected, swept under the carpet, God knows, if you follow the money trail, where these sums of money end up. But in the end, I always say, everybody needs money. Nobody survives on sand. We all need money to survive. But how much is enough? At what point is greed just ahina obedi? In a day, how much will you eat? You build that mansion, 34, whatever. How many will you sleep in at one point? Even if your bed is as big as this studio. How much of a portion can you sleep on at a point? God help Ghana. God help our motherland and make her great and strong. These are my blunt thoughts shared with you, raw, hot, unedited, undiluted. My name is Benjamin Akapo. Thank you for watching.